Welcome back to the CTO Playbook, the podcast dedicated to helping CTOs excel. What if the secret to lasting impact in technology has nothing to do with technology itself? Early in his career, Matthew Carr was convinced success meant mastering the code. But over time, he discovered something striking. Companies don't thrive because of the frameworks they use, but because of the trust they build, the clarity they create, and the alignment that they sustain. In this episode, Matthew shares his playbook, why people come first, process comes second, and technology follows afterwards. I'm your host, Adam Horner, coach to CTOs from startups to enterprises, helping you lead with clarity, confidence, and strategic impact. If you've ever felt like you're figuring it out the hard way, you're not alone. That's why I created the CTO Playbook, a podcast and a platform built for leaders just like you. Explore coaching, cohorts, and more at thectoplaybook.com. Your path, your pace, your playbook. Let's get into it. Matthew, welcome to the CTO Playbook. It's an interesting one because, like most great people, you've got an approach that starts in three parts. Interestingly, matches my own: people, process, and technology. What is it, do you think, about those three things that makes them so compelling for CTO and technical leadership in general?
Well, it's a great question, that. And I've often wondered that as I kind of came up with my playbook. And I think when I started my career, it was all about the technology. And I'm sure this resonates with a few people out there. That I was an engineer to start with. I was all about the technology. But then as I matured and went through my career, I realized very much that it actually wasn't about the technology at all. The businesses I work for, the leaders I work for, they really couldn't care less what technology was used, as long as the outcome matched the business strategy and where the business was trying to get to. So then I thought, okay, if it's not about the technology, what else is it? And then I actually went back to, what process are we following? Waterfall, agile, wagile, whatever it was. And then as I got more into that, I thought, this isn't quite right either. And then I stumbled upon the fact that I was quite a people person, and I delivered the best results throughout my career by working with the people, inspiring the people, getting the people to work together, bringing the technology team closer to the people, closer to the leadership, and being that kind of bridge in the middle. And then when I started to focus on people first, then the processes, then the technology, is when my career really started to take off. So
once you got it in the right order, the way that works for you, then lift off.
Yeah, absolutely. Delivered great results. Was a lot happier with myself. Figured out the teams were a lot happier that I used to lead, coach, and manage. And then fundamentally, if the people are happy, process works well, the technology just follows, and the business gets great results.
That's fantastic, and matches my experience so closely as well. I've come to a very similar playbook, as I mentioned before, and the journey is probably quite similar. So it can be very interesting, Matthew. Let's go back to those days when you were, a young technologist, a young engineer, and just tell us about some of the technologies you were working on, and particularly some of the ones that you were particularly proud of the technological aspects of it at the time.
So I graduated from university in 2000, which feels like a long time ago now for sure.
It's almost last century, isn't it?
It is. And I started off developing in classic ASP, so kind of VB script, classic ASP, and developing some wonderful applications. So I developed a loyalty program for a company I worked for that was the first real online loyalty program. A bit like, if you remember, it was very similar to what the supermarkets have now, but it was for the kind of heating and engineering sector. So the company I worked for, if the engineer installed a boiler in your house, they would get a certain number of loyalty points. And then if they installed 100 boilers a year or a month, they get loyalty points, they get some form of prize with that, some form of reward. So, skateboard, holiday, things like that. And that actually revolutionized the company I was working at and really, really pushed them up to kind of the profit levels they're looking for. And helped be quite unique in the market, but that was all about the technology.
Right. I mean, that's interesting because it's a B2B loyalty program, which at the time was probably, as you say, pretty unique. But I mean, you mentioned classic ASP there before ASP.NET came along. And what else was it about that technology which made it engineering-wise an interesting solution?
It was because you could actually see the results in near real time. I think that's what was great about kind of classic ASP and ASP.NET as it went on. You would do something, you would run it, you could show it. There wasn't a long compile time. You could work with business kind of stakeholders and SMEs, and you could really get into the code and drive real results really quickly. So I really kind of fell in love with it that way. You could put your hands on the keyboard, write some code, press a button, it would be there, get some instant feedback and move forward. So it was the use of tech that you could put in front of users quite quickly that really made me fall in love with it.
Right. So already we're sort of seeing a bit of the process coming in terms of the sort of the fast turnaround and the fast review steps, with your own business analysts, I guess. But then also working closely with people as part of that, part of putting that technology together. So almost unwittingly early on, you had the foundations there already. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. And it was that kind of thing that I noticed people I work with didn't do that. They sat in the corner, did what they needed to do. Then when they had to, they would show it to somebody because it was that, this is going to be what they want. So I kind of said, well, maybe we should ask them quickly, not spend 2 or 3 weeks doing something and then show them, maybe do it within a couple of days. And what I found was there was people that didn't want to talk to technical people. There was technical people that didn't want to talk to the customers or the stakeholders. They just wanted to be told in a big spec, just tell me what to do, let me put my headphones in, let me go away and do it. So I kind of grew out of the opposite of that. Said, actually, I'd rather spend as little time as I can doing this, but getting it right. So then showing somebody, go, that's exactly what I want. And I used to get quite a buzz from putting something in front of somebody. They go, that's exactly what I want. Or can you move that? Can you move that up there? Don't quite like that. But that interaction. So over time, I actually gradually moved away from the code itself and started being the middleman, on the bridge, asking the right questions to the wider business, explaining it to the developers working on it, explaining both sides of the coin.
Yep.
And that was kind of when I really fell into it and I realized actually it's not all about the tech. Because there's a huge amount of people that love the tech. They would sit in a room and they would get the latest framework, the latest language. I remember when .NET came out, everybody, this is going to be a game changer. And it was. But to me, I was like, okay, great. But how could we use it?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I started bringing the teams together and then moving through my career from a software engineer to a delivery manager to head of department and really understanding that the closer you can bring people together. But the phrase I started to use a lot was, how do we create environments for people to do the best work?
Yeah.
And with that, it was, okay, not just the engineers to do the best work, how does everybody do the best work? So if you can bring a group of people together, coach and figure out the right process, the right culture, technology follows, and then you get great results.
Absolutely. Sort of literally heading for the goal, and the technology is just one piece of the puzzle on the way rather than being the central player.
Absolutely.
So I presume you've probably seen on your journey through a few examples where that didn't play out quite like that. And I'd love to dig into that, because often what we find is success is okay as a teacher, but it kind of doesn't push us to really understand why we're winning. So perhaps we can scoot back to some of those times when you're looking at some amazing technology, but it really wasn't clicking. It wasn't driving results and impact. Because I find that those moments, and I hope you'll agree with me, that those moments are the kind of ones where you sort of really realize that actually this is the wrong path.
Yes. Well, actually, I fully agree with that. My career took a strange turn, whereas I tended to join companies when they'd made the wrong turn and they were looking to figure out how to get out of that, kind of get out of the cul-de-sac, which is kind of probably leads me into when we get onto why I do interim work, or why I kind of come as the firefighter. So it's difficult to describe, but a lot of my roles, I've joined a company and they're like, okay, well, we were going to do this, but we've either had a new CTO appointed or a new CIO appointed or something, and we've done a 180. So I joined a team about, okay, so we need somebody to rewrite this code, or we need somebody to come and look at our processes, or we were about to implement Agile and it's just not quite going right. So kind of a great example of that is I joined a company that had just been purchased by a PE company.
Right. Private equity. Yep.
Private equity company, and they'd acquired a startup for the technology.
Okay.
And I think it's fair to say the culture of a startup, they build quickly, fail fast, have quite a lot of tech debt, and then they get there and they sell, but they've got a great concept, a great idea. So I kind of joined a company there where they'd just been acquired and they couldn't quite get the tech to do what it needed to do. So, and they were kind of 6 to 12 months late on the deliverables. And I kind of walked in and I looked about at the business. I went, okay, so the tech's quite modern and seems to make sense, but we just can't get this thing delivered. I said, okay, let's have a look at what's happened, how we got in the situation. And this is where my playbook was born. So it's not just about the tech. So I said, right, let's figure out what's gone wrong. So I sit down and start with the people, and I have a one-to-one with everybody in the business.
Everybody, okay, right.
Everybody. I mean, traditionally, that can take a long time, but I try to start with my team and kind of go out broadwards.
Right.
And what I find with that is it's all about building the trust with the people. Sit down, let them know they've been heard. Let them open up. Some people will open up instantly and you become their counsellor. Other people won't talk a word to you. It takes a little bit of time to build up that rapport. But you find a shape and a theme of what's happening. You know, we're not listened to as a development team. We're using the wrong technology. We haven't got a process. We haven't got a way of working. The tech's wrong. We should be using something else. So
you're just looking for the commonalities and all the sort of answers and conversations you're having rather than zooming in on one particular thing that will stand out then.
Absolutely. And I bring those themes together in my mind, and then I bring the team together and I try to run what's called like a massive retrospective. So for those agile people listening, they call retrospective. That's what you do at the end of a sprint or an end of an iteration. But I'm like, no. I like to get everybody's trust, talk to them, understand some themes, try and create a psychological safe place, and have a retrospective and get everybody to open up. What's going well? What do we need to do more of? What's not so good? What's not so good? What's not so good? Doing so well, and then finally, how can we improve it as a team?
Right.
And you'll find if it's facilitated correctly, and I think I'm a half decent facilitator, people open up and start to talk and they start to solve their own problems in the room. Or you start to see the issues. Is the tech the issue, or the process the issue, or the people the issue? And that's kind of my first step in what we do. And from then you get a blueprint to move forward from. So I appreciate you asked about the technology, but when I joined somewhere like that, we had around 110 things that people didn't think were going right, but we had the people in the room to solve them.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say that's quite the list. I mean, you talking here about a startup that's been acquired. So, I mean, I'm thinking startups in that case are probably maximum 30 people. And then you got the entity that they've been incorporated into, which is probably 2 or 3 times the size generally. So you're pretty much one problem per person. Is my maths roughly right there, Matthew?
That's about right, yeah. And you have a couple of people that would be more vocal than others, but the right problems are there. And the great thing is, I know some people look, and that's a lot of problems. I said, this is great. Once you got the problems out there, you can start to solve them.
Yeah.
But the key thing is, again, I'm still focused on the people. But the key thing at that point is people have opened up, they've been vulnerable, they've put it out there, and they're looking for change. So it's my responsibility at that point to drive that change, to put the plans together, to go and solve the problems as quick as I could. And it takes time, because actually does solving somebody's problem lead to business value, leads to EBITDA increase the multiplier. So that is kind of the next step in terms of you've got it out there, you've got the people to follow you, you've now got to put a plan together to back that up.
Right. So then that's taking that great big list and running it through the filter of essentially, does it get us to the goal? Yes, indeed. So that's kind of when I moved to my next point of growing teams, but growing leaders within the team. Right.
And I try to get everybody to to understand what the vision is, what the why is. Why do you come into work? Why does your work matter? What is your North Star? And with all those problems or issues put out there, you go, okay, so fixing this, how does it align to what we're trying to do? And then usually you can actually pull off some of those things. Is it just people's frustrations or what they want to do? And you grab them together, you put them towards the North Star, and then you break it down into a number of iterations, things people need to do, things along those lines. And you build teams behind it that are motivated and ask them to get on with it.
Yeah. The interesting thing about that is that once you've built the trust, you've kind of automatically gathered yourself the mandate to be followed, if you like. Because one of the things I think a lot of interims struggle with when they go into an organization is the shadow power or soft power, where they don't really have the permission, if you like. They don't have the trust from others to be able to move forward. Whereas by sitting down and talking to everybody and bringing, by the sounds of it, almost everybody together, you kind of run straight through that problem to the other side of it, which is a very neat solution to what is generally an intractable problem for a lot of leaders.
Yeah, honestly. And it takes a bit of time to do that, to sit down, to talk to everybody, to understand the problems and to get people to believe you. And it doesn't work everywhere, and it doesn't work for everybody, because some founders you speak to, some bosses you work for, perm or interim, say, this is the problem, this is the solution, I need you to go away and do this. And I always kind of go, okay, why do you think that? And trying to get out of that. So you can start by talking to people, you can start by following the process, sitting in meetings, trying to pull it all together. And people don't think you're doing anything. A couple of times throughout my career, I've had, well, what do you do? I haven't seen you do anything yet.
Right.
And I was like, well,
when you're still at the process of building trust.
Yes. And I say, well, I'm still trying to win the trust. Well, why do you need to win the trust? Just need you to get this delivered. So there's a balance of keeping the stakeholders happy and also actually bringing the team along with you and winning the trust. So that's why in the first kind of 30 days, first couple of weeks, I look for some quick wins that you could get through. What problem can you fix? What value can you add? What can you show that the team are doing, you're doing, in order to win a bit more time or to win a bit more kind of trust with the stakeholders around what you're doing is correct. Otherwise,
and
you
the
find
explanation
people
about why it takes extra time then, because you're not only winning that trust, you're also knocking out a few quick wins, which often I find in a dysfunctional organization are anything but quick.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes you have to explain to people, look, I'm doing this to get this result because we need this result to get us to the next stage. But people say, yeah, but I don't understand why we're doing that. We shouldn't be doing that. It's not taking us forward on the linear path. And I explain to people, well, it's not all about the linear path. You've got to win the trust, because if I'm being brought in, something's not working. And, it's if you can see you've got good people who are wanting to do the right thing, but they're not showing the right outcomes, how can you quickly get an outcome to buy the people more time, or to get the other people who are potentially non-believers to follow you down that path? Yeah.
And I think that's where this point about alignment comes in quite strongly, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, if people all focus on very short-term goals, those goals can be quite disparate and not necessarily look lined up. Whereas I think if you focus longer term, everybody is and looks a lot more aligned, just because of the fact you've got a further horizon to go to. And I think that's one of those things that some leaders, especially coming from the sort of the very high pace, short-termist approach, whether that's the world of traded equities where you're sort of on quarterly financial reporting, which I see in the US, or if you're in startup land where it's, we've only got 6 weeks of runway ever at any point. We're never going to look further than 6 weeks ahead. So I think helping people to look beyond those 6 weeks, beyond those 3 months, is another one where it's kind of, if you get that bit right, people are more naturally aligned anyway. Is that something that you struggle with as well? Is that something that sort of, I know it's part of your playbook, but in terms of part of that long challenge in the first few days and weeks of getting the buy-in?
Yes, yeah, I do struggle with that quite a bit, because again, people say, I brought you in to fix this.
Yeah.
And you're not really fixing this. So I said, okay, what I used quite early on is I'm a big Agile fan. You've probably picked that up over from my history. So we were using Scrum. I thought, okay, so we planned 3 sprints ahead. So the current sprint and 2 other ones, which was around 6 weeks. and we focus on outcomes, not outputs. This is the outcome. We tie it to business value. We put a rough cost on it. It's going to cost obviously to deliver that, and we put what we think the business value is. And I would go to the board and go, the next 6 weeks, we're aiming to do this. We're going to deliver this, and this is the value we're going to give to the business. Is that okay? And most of the time they go, yes. You go, great. Then you go and deliver that. And they go, and the next 6 weeks, we're going to take 3 sprints and we're going to aim for this. We're going to do this. And this is what the value will deliver. And they go, oh, okay. And actually, after they've done that, you then go, okay, we're now going to show you the plan for the next quarter and the next half. Because we've delivered this, like I've said, I'm going to deliver this. Technology works, the people work, the process works, and the value is ticking away. Then they go, actually, great, get on with it. But initially, you've got to show them what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, and what value it adds to their business.
So you've got to play their game first so you can show that you can play their game before they allow you to play your game, which is the longer term approach to it.
Yeah.
And not only that, you've got to win at their game as well.
Absolutely. Which again, build trust with them and they build trust with you. But I always give them the option. If this isn't working for you, we don't need to do it. Yeah. So sometimes people see it as a bit of a bribe,
right?
In terms of, if you're playing poker, you say, we're going to do this. If you don't want us to do that, that's fine. Spend your funding elsewhere. If you want us to continue, and 99% of the time people, yes, we'd like you to continue. And then if it doesn't go to plan, we say, well, we're going to do this. We try to do this. We hit this issue. So we did this and we've learned and we're going to do this next time. And it's the same thing again. Open and honest dialogue, explain the why behind it, what value you're trying to do. And if you had issues and what you did, usually, even for the most difficult stakeholders, they give you a bit of leeway as long as you have a background of delivery and value creation and you're pulling the right culture together, then you usually get a little bit of support.
Excellent. I mean, that's a really good segue actually going in, in terms of going from the who to the how and looking really going from people to process. So let's have a look at what and when you learned about process, because at the beginning you spoke about the fact you sort of started off with the technology and then worked back from there to the process before you eventually figured out that it was really the people was the place to start. So let's go to that middle ground. Let's go to the process approach to it. And where was it where you kind of realized, okay, there's a good way of doing this and there's a way that everybody's doing it that doesn't work? I mean, do you have one of those stories where process was just completely in a knot?
Yes. Too many to think of. I'm just trying to give you the kind of a great example. And I think it was probably at the midpoint in my career.
Right.
I joined a business and they did a lot of products, a lot of international products, a lot to do with authentication and identification. And I joined a team that hadn't shipped anything in 18 months. 18 months. Wow, that's going to be a record. 18 months. I think it was. And it was the project program that nobody wanted to be associated with. And I've been with the business a little while. And I was young, I was hungry. And I tapped on my boss's door and said, I want a challenge. I want a big challenge. And he said, okay. And he said, I've got you one, but it might be the death of your career. And, I said, go on, let's have a look. And he explained about this, the program, that it was key. It was a key part of the business where they wanted to go, but it was failing badly. And because of that being some changes behind the scenes, and they wanted somebody to come in and grab a hold of it. I was like, great. Let's grab a hold of it and let's see what's happening. So I was parachuted in and I met the team, really nice bunch of people. And I said to them, right, how are we working? What are we trying to deliver? And they looked around and went, we don't know. I was like, what? We don't know. We just get given work to do, high level, and told to get on with it. And this was probably one where the technology was coming first, then the process, and then the people.
Right.
Because they were trying to do something incredibly complicated with the technology to print barcodes, to print stickers, to get things attached to physical goods. And everybody had a different idea how to solve the problem. But
I can see where this is going.
Yes. But it just kept going round and round and round and round. I went, right, okay, great. Let's stop a minute and figure out what is the why behind this? What are we trying to do? So the business kind of said, oh, well, we just do what we're told. I was like, brilliant. So I went around and I tried to find a sponsor, a stakeholder within the business, something along the lines of somebody that would go, yeah, I can explain the why behind what we're trying to do.
Somebody who hadn't disowned it by that stage, by the sounds of it.
Absolutely. So I went around knocking on a lot of doors around the business, going, could somebody help me, please? And I got a lot of people with the sad eyes, gave me the sad eyes, saying, oh, you're in charge of that now, are you? And I was like, yes, I am. Can you help me? Oh, actually, I can give the name of somebody you should need to talk to. Like, brilliant. So, and this is the absolute truth. Went great. We've got a whole lot. I'm not going to say the names to protect the innocent and also the guilty in this, but the great. Sent this person an email, got an out of office. I have now left. Which came back in an email. I was like, okay.
Wow.
And I eventually tracked somebody down. Great gentleman. We'll call him Paul, but Paul's not his real name, just, again, to protect the innocent and guilty. But Paul was a superstar. So Paul kind of came over and he gave me the history of the project from top to bottom. And he said, but I'm not getting back involved. He said, I don't want any of this. I said, go on. I appreciate this is a long answer to your question about process. But what I found out is there were some really passionate people, but they were more the product owners, the more the SMEs of where we need for the project. And they needed assistance to help them bring their vision to life. So this is where I thought, great, if I can get somebody who can just explain the why and the problem, I can pull a team together that can turn your problem into a solution and get something out there. And that's exactly what we did. So we took Paul, we got him in a room, and we got some talented business analysts, some talented engineers, and we spent a couple of days just getting it all out there.
Basically covering whiteboards with writing, then I assume.
That's it. Covering the whiteboards with the writing, what we're doing while we hadn't done it. And we mapped out how we're going to get from A to B, and we mapped out a simple delivery process. Let's get everybody working back together. And it was at that point, everything clicked. And it was a really simple delivery process. It was just, we want to do this. This is the value. This is how we're going to break it down. This is how we're going to test it right. And this is how we're going to roll it out and get it validated. And over time, we did it in weekly iterations, and it got better and better and better and better. And we had a really small team of people that were obsessed with this project because it had gone wrong so badly. Everybody pulled together and we're going to get this right. We visualized the process, got people behind it, we got a vision, and we incrementally did it. And every month we put a new version out, got people in the business to showcase it. And after 3 months, everybody wanted to be associated with it, as opposed to 6 months ago, nobody wanted to go near it. We got it out there. We got customers using it. We got great feedback. And it became over the next 3 years, it became a bedrock and a massive division of the business.
So it's an amazing story. And of course, I think a lot of people like me are going to go start looking for the magic beans at the center of the story. What was it, do you think, that set this approach apart from A, what had been tried before, and B, the bit that sort of attracted people towards it, after it started actually delivering?
It was because the process we put in place was a really lightweight, agile process that hadn't been tried before.
Okay.
So within the wider business, it was very waterfall driven, very big upfront specs, very large teams. It was very much command and control at times. So with this particular project, it was lightweight. We flew under the radar. Nobody cared about us. We had no pressure on us to, we had to deliver. If we didn't deliver, it didn't really matter. But the team were that had each other's back. We talked about the best way to do things. It turned very quickly into that mythical high-performing team because everybody understood the roles and responsibilities. We had a vision. We understood what value we're trying to do. And the magic beans, as you say, was everybody working together. And if there was an issue, we'd just fix it. But you had that psychological safety. Everybody understood the process. You had the right business stakeholders involved. You had the right funding. It was everything you needed to kind of get it done. And when people saw success was coming, it was like people started to pop out the woodwork a little bit. Oh, I can help with this. Well, I can help with this now. And all of a sudden, it ended up being a bit of a movement, which was fantastic to be a part of. and I was there thinking, I haven't done much to help this. But what I realized on reflection was, it's about the people again. If you get the people and get the process right, the technology follows.
Yeah. But also by the sounds of it, you helped take something from being an opaque set of nobody wanted to own up to it, to being able to be fairly succinct and, I dare say, clear about what the outcome needed to be, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And that was because we had the right leader, not me, we had the right leader who knew the vision, that could explain the vision, that could explain what good looked like. And I kept on saying back to the team, is what we're doing going to get us to the outcome that Paul wants?
Right, so focusing on those outcomes.
Focus on the outcomes. And if the answer is no, don't do it. If it is, let's do it. So it was just nudging them and getting them to ask the right question. Whereas before, part of the team was saying, oh, we can use this cool technology. And I'd say, okay, well, why use that cool technology? Oh, because it can do all these things. But does that solve our problem? Does that help us get where we want to be? No, it doesn't. Okay, let's park that and let's re-answer the question. So I felt like a facilitator, or kept asking the right question and kept getting the team thinking the right way and keep everybody communicating. So it's not about using the latest, greatest tech. It's about pulling everybody together, trusting the process, answering the right question.
Yeah, because I often find that it is one of those stages with those complex projects where there isn't actually some silver bullet that just comes along at the right time and just, has the perfect shot. It is actually a combination of factors that you need to get right. But then also, as you pointed out, a very iterative approach. Is this working? Is it not? Do more of what is working and do less of what isn't working. Saying no, though, is one of the hardest things I find.
Yes. I'm laughing because, people don't dare say no in life. And I think it's a whole thing now about you don't have to say no because, or you don't have to kind of justify the no, but actually you're doing business. If you see what I mean, because people say we want this, no, you can't have that. Well, why not? Well, why aren't we going to have this? So it's explaining in value terms what the no means. Yeah. Saying no, we can't do that, but because we're doing this, which will give you this. It's an interesting challenge, and some people just no, we want that. We want this solution. So it's part of my role is understanding the why behind that and peeling the onion, as I say, and go, okay, why? Right, now I understand. So actually what you mean is this, but you've asked it this way. Oh, they go, yes. So we got to deliver this to give you this value to answer your question. And most of the time they understand. However, sometimes you've got a bit of an impasse.
Yeah, but it is that fanatical focus on the outcome rather than on the output as they see it or the output as you see it.
Very much. Yeah. And my last few kind of assignments, it has been, when I walked in, so heavily focused on the output. The team aren't working hard enough. The output's not there. So I kind of say, okay, what outcome are you trying to get? And I think there's sometimes an education piece across when you're dealing with certainly kind of technical teams, that hours don't equal outcomes in terms of people think, if you're at your desk 8 hours a day, or you're working remotely or online 8 hours a day, you're going to get the right output or the right outcome. I was like, no, let the team work together and solve the problem, and they will bring you the right outcome. And what I've seen a bit more recently is teams being given velocity targets to hit when I've taken them over. So for those that know Scrum, velocity is a way of understanding how much work you can get in a time box or an iteration. What I find is people saying, well, if you're not hitting your 14 story points this iteration, you're not working hard enough. The output isn't there. So the number one thing I kind of do in that situation is, you don't have a velocity target. What is the value you're trying to deliver this sprint?
Yeah, the impact target rather than the results target.
Very much. And if they can't tell me that, I say, don't do anything. until we can understand what value we're going to deliver to the business in the next week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, stop. And we need to go back and ask the right questions. And that's a team accountability, in my view, of asking the right questions. Why are we doing this?
And I've seen that often enough with that, because that also translates when you see people who are looking for, okay, we need to generate this, create this much code, create these many features, and sort of, leaders saying, we can't afford to have our developers doing nothing because they're so expensive. And the bit that I often point out as a sort of a fun counterweight to that one is, well, if your developers are churning out loads of code that is actually negative value or zero value, what you're doing is just increasing the cost on the business, because all of that code needs supporting. And it's a multiplier with every new feature you add, whether it's useful or not. And so therefore, if they're just churning out useless features or features that are not going to generate value, they're actually adding cost to the business and weighing down the team further every time they do that. So focusing on, story points or feature delivery per month kind of misses the point often in terms of, okay, what impact are we having? It's not a factory line. It's much more like trying to figure out all the tumblers in a lock. The lock opens or it doesn't. You get revenue or you don't. But if you don't have everything lined up, spinning those tumblers and lock can waste a lot of time, and the door never opens.
Absolutely. And it's surprising how many times I've seen that kind of, say, attitude with the businesses. Or it goes to, actually, we need more developers. If we get more developers, we'll deliver quicker, we'll get more value. And I actually say no, and this is meant, I'm not trying to get people to downsize. So you actually need less developers, less testers. You need that more compelling vision, that more understanding of the problem. And I've seen it more and more recently, especially with AI, where people are trying to say, we don't need developers, we just get AI to do it. It's like, yeah, but unless you know fundamentally what problem you're trying to solve or what value you're trying to add, your outcome delivery mechanism doesn't matter. If until you can pull together that vision, what problem you're trying to solve, what outcome you're trying to get, you shouldn't spend any money whatsoever.
Yeah, and this is this thing that goes back to, I think it was it Fred Brooks who published the Mythical Man Month? I mean, it's only since 1975 that this idea has been around, and it's not something new. The way he expressed it was wonderful, wasn't it? He said, it takes one woman 9 months to have a baby, but you can't have a baby in 1 month with 9 women. And yet we still come down to this sort of concept of, add more developers, it'll go faster. It's like, no, actually it will not. It'll take just as much time and probably confuse the rest of the people on the way. So it'll probably take longer, actually.
Quite. And I think that was one thing I say to people. How do you make a project go quicker? Reduce the number of people involved. Get it down to the brass tacks of what outcome do we want? What's the quickest way to get there? And let's just get on with it and learn as we go. And of course, again, the amount of people that I need to see the plan, I need to see the full business case. Let's just get moving. Get a small team that are highly motivated against the vision, and let's see what they do.
Yeah, the wonderfully Yorkshire expression there, the brass tacks. That's the bare basics of what's going on. Yeah,
yeah, thank you. And that, honestly, in one sense, that is for playbook at a really high level. Create environments where people can do the best work. Get a small focused team which has all the skills you need to do it. Set them the vision and help them get there.
Excellent. I mean, that's a really good summary, but let's take it down one more level, because you've always gone people, process, then technology. So when you're looking for the right technologies, you've got the right team in place, you've got the right processes, you've slimmed things down, you've made it very clear target. What is it about the right technologies that allows you to know that it's right versus when you look at a technology and go, really?
You see, that's a great question, because I still sometimes get that wrong. Full disclosure with that. I mean, the main thing I look at is it's around kind of ease of use,
right?
From the point of view of, can you pick it up? Can the team use it? Can the team understand it? Sometimes I look at things like longevity. Is it brand new? Is it bleeding edge? And, if it's bleeding edge, my initial reaction is keep well away from that. I've seen a lot of teams go, oh, we need to get that, and they're shouting about we're using bleeding edge tech, we're really good. And I was like, okay, let's talk again in a year, and let's see what's happening in a year. And the third part of that is probably the availability of skilled people in that technology.
Right. Yeah.
So
can you recruit the right people who are able to leverage it?
Yeah. And then you get usual kind of the costs involved and the security elements of it and how many frameworks are there. You drill deeper, but they're the main factors and drivers I usually look at.
So is it going to work? Is it not too close to the bleeding edge? Is it going to actually deliver value versus is it going to slow the business down or cost the business more, whether that's higher recruitment fees or higher personnel fees to run it, or sometimes just higher licensing fees? I've seen that one as well. The old ratchet on the license fees is, when you look at a company, you say, okay, we can see they've done that with their previous 3 products. Are they going to do it with it again? Probably.
Yeah, very much. And it could go down to build versus buy as well. Because are we going to buy this technology off the shelf, or are we going to build it in house? You might be we're going to use, because AWS are fantastic in my view. That they've got so many components and so many libraries you can use off the shelf to do it really well. Are we going to build it bespoke using, say, something like AWS? Or are we going to go and buy something off the shelf that actually can solve 99% of our needs? And my question I ask most people is what that business does so unique, so niche, and there's a knowledge all in-house that you can't go and buy it off the shelf? Or is it something like a CRM you need when actually there's thousands of CRM providers? So then you go and do your due diligence and figure out what's the CRM that fits your needs before any other money's spent. And it's kind of a bit similar when you pick the tech overall. Do you build in-house, or do you go and get something off the shelf? And what's your kind of analysis on build versus buy? Yeah,
and it's always one of those things, isn't it? Buying or selecting a CRM to use or license. It is, I don't know what it is about CRMs. There just seem to be so much temptation for building another CRM and bringing it to market in that space. But it does create an interesting buyer's dilemma of, well, so which one of the many, many options that are valid and in my price bracket and actually fit my requirements that I go for? And sometimes it doesn't actually come down to choice of the technology at all, but the provider, the way that they bring it to market, their pricing model. I mean, you end up with a lot of different parameters for making those decisions. Is that something that you have a general approach to how you narrow down your choice of provider when you're looking for off-the-shelf technology?
So yes, and this is where I am very agile from kind of what I do. But I think when it comes for looking at things off the shelf, you sometimes have to have quite a drains up approach and understand how your business works and understands the processes, how your process works within your business, what you're trying to do. And unless you understand how your business works today and actually do a lot of work in simplifying your processes, make them all visible, understanding where your pain points are internally, then it doesn't really matter what you buy from a tech perspective. It isn't going to solve your problems. So I like to get a full flavor of how the business works, where the pain points are, what you're trying to replace with technology, and then map it to ensure whatever third party you buy, whatever third party actually fulfills those needs completely. Or if you have to write custom integrations, which a lot of people do,
yep.
How complex are they? How much support are you going to get? What's the licensing fee, as you mentioned before, Adam? Because before you know it, you might have found the right CRM off the shelf that does exactly what you need today. But if the business is going to scale in the next 3 years, you might find out you need to 3 times your cost for the CRM. It's going to kill the business value.
Yeah, unit cost may not actually be worth it after all.
Mm.
Cool. And you also mentioned when you're looking at technology, using governance in a very particular way as well.
What I've seen, a lot of businesses when I go in there, they don't have any governance. So the most technical skilled person in the room decides, okay, we're going to use this technology, or we're going to use this framework, or we're going to buy this SaaS product to do what we need. So what I found is to help stop businesses going down where they just create big spaghetti code, or they just, they buy the wrong things and they're tied in for 10 years, is really lightweight design authorities, put some architectural guide rails with an architecture review board, little things where a group of people come together and they kind of manage or maintain standards and process that help the business move quickly, but they put guardrails around it so that not one person has ultimate power of choice of tech, processes, ways of working, final decision on where the money's spent, because it's that wisdom of crowds. If you ask one person one question, you'll get one answer. But if you get 3 or 4 highly skilled people and ask them the same question, they debate it and they come out with the right answer. So a lot of times I've been in business where they're moving really quickly in different directions, but different different types of technology are being moved in different ways. So you put like a design authority together, some architectural guide rails, and it's not there to stop. I've seen it being so heavy-handed that an engineer or a tech lead or team lead can't even just upgrade a version of the code base to the next framework without taking a 6-person committee and a 3-week review. That's not what I'm talking about here.
Right.
It's literally a quick meeting that can be put together once a week. It can be done by exception, just to make sure that Team A and Team B and Team C aren't building the same authentication framework 3 different ways, which is why I'm a big fan of team topologies, where you got your platform team and the platform team takes care of things like that. Right. And they would own those kind of decisions. So that's what I mean by governance and guardrails. You have to have some, but not too heavy. Otherwise, it grinds the business to a halt. But if you have none at all, eventually you find your business grinds to a halt, and by that point, it's too late.
Yeah, and I've seen both sides of that balance, because it is a bit of a fulcrum, isn't it? So you have the right amount of process complexity for the size, stage, and scale of the business. But if you end up with too little process, you end up with chaos. If you end up with too much process, you end up with gridlock, effectively, whereas a small number of people are able to veto pretty much any decision or innovation that you want to bring forward. So it very, very much is about getting the right level of people. What's your approach generally then to selecting that team that have that committee veto vote?
So what I try to do, depending on the business size, but what I find is you usually got, as you mentioned there, some people with strong views that have maybe been there a long time, and they need to be heard and they need a place on the committee. But you also need the young, smart, shiny kids who are into everything and know a lot about everything, but don't necessarily have all the experience. So I try to get the old guard, the deep thinkers, well, we can't do that. Change is bad. Let's just stay as we are. And I try to get some up and coming whiz kids as well. So I try to get a nice blend and let them have the debate, because I think every view is valid, but you've got to make it 3 or 4 people, mainly on the tech lead level.
Right. So you're deliberately selecting for tension, but then also deliberately making sure you haven't counterweighted it too far one way or the other.
Absolutely, because I've learned over the years, and it's taken me a long time to learn this. Positive friction is good. The best decisions come from teams that are not exactly the same. As long as they respect each other from a healthy respect, and yes, we understand the value you bring, then I think that's brilliant. It's when it becomes a bit unhealthy and they don't have that commitment to kind of debate something from a professional level, disagree with each other, but actually commit to a course of action. Yeah. And it's a great kind of Amazon, AWS leadership is have backbone, disagree, and commit. And I think from my time working with AWS, that's the biggest thing that I took away that really helps teams. Have that debate, be passionate around it. But once a decision's made amongst that group, get behind it, back it, and play it through to the very end. And that's something I try to put in all my teams. It's okay to disagree. Please stand up and have a voice, but do not, behind the scenes, go and sabotage that, because that kills it. Absolutely. But I do put teams together for healthy friction, which usually works. I can't lie. So sometimes it goes down the wrong route. So you've got to intervene a bit more than you want to. But I think that's where you get the best decisions, where teams can have that debate and respect each other and actually move forward very quickly.
Awesome. This is going to be so much fun. So summarizing this down into playbook, Matthew, because there's a lot of it that makes it feel like I could have written this playbook. It's very close to the approach that I take. But let's go for it anyway. So it basically, as you said right at the very beginning, it breaks down into 3 fundamental areas. So people first, process second, technology third. So within the people, your approach is to find the enablers, which are trust, leadership, and alignment. Build the trust first. Grow leaders, not just teams, which I love. and align people to the overall purpose, which for me is often about clarity of vision.
Very much that. And I think to me, that's really important. And I know you summarised that, but I couldn't help but jump in. But it is that, why do people come into work? What's the vision? Understand why their work matters. If you can get that into people, you're more than halfway there.
Yeah. And I always just advocate repeating it again and again until you're bored of saying it. In fact, sometimes there was one great leader, sales leader I knew, he had a 15-word vision statement. And his game for himself was to, every time he said it, was to change one word, just one word in the vision statement every time he said it. And he would say it 2-3 times a day. So he had a lot of fun with that. That was his way of keeping it fresh as he repeated it again and again to make sure that everybody had that vision front and center all the time.
Yeah, brilliant.
So process then is the second key stage of your approach. The enablers here are clarity, flow, and value delivery. And you were looking for clarity over complexity. I literally just mentioned that one, which is fantastic. Focusing on the outcomes, not on the output. So we spoke about the fact that it's not a factory. It's much more like getting the tumblers to align. And adapt and evolve, rather than looking for sort of the big bang solution or the single big magic outcome at the end of it. And then the third pillar was your technology approach. Enablers there, fit for purpose, modernization, and the bit that I love at the end, governance. So making sure that you're using fit for purpose technology, not the latest shiny stuff necessarily. Modernizing, so it's making sure that you're unlocking the value there. And we spoke about how you would pick the right technology that moves the business forward, balanced by those people in the governance using that as a guardrail rather than as a handbrake or as a runaway train.
Yeah, excellent. That's exactly my playbook.
Brilliant. Matthew, it's been absolutely wonderful going through this. It's sometimes like looking in a mirror, which is also fun. So from the perspective then, how can people get in touch with you, whether they're talking about interim or just coming in and consulting to sort out some situations they've got? How can people get hold of you?
Yeah, no. So 2 ways. LinkedIn, that is the usual way that everyone can find me on LinkedIn. I go by the name of the Agility Guy, because that's kind of focused on creating environments where people do the best work, but I focus on agility, which is the people, process, and technology. And also my website, matthewcarr.me, would be another way you can have a look at me and either drop me an email. My mobile number's on there, and I'd be delighted to chat to anybody about their people, process, and technology issues. Or if people just want to chat, I will generally be open to just hearing your problems and see if I can help.
And I can vouch for what Matthew being a wonderful conversationalist as well. So we'll put all the links for those in the show notes at the bottom, Matthew. Final question, which I ask to all of my guests, which is that if you were sat down in front of a CTO who's perhaps in their first, maybe second role as a CTO right now, and you could tell them just one thing, just one tip, what would that be from your perspective?
Believe in yourself. You're sitting in that chair for a reason. It's because of what you've done has got you there. And you will figure it out. People don't get to sit in a CTO chair for no reason. That would be what I'd say to them.
Absolutely wonderful. What a great way to finish. Matthew, thanks so much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the whole episode. I appreciate your time. So just before you go, I'd like to ask you for a favor in return for putting together this episode of the CTO Playbook for you. Please share the episode with just one person who will appreciate it. Wherever you're listening, whether that is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or another platform, sharing the episode will help more CTOs find the podcast and enable me to create more great content. Remember that you can find more information on the CTOplaybook.com. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode of the CTO Playbook.